that she could stay if she wanted to stay. That was how peaceful it was. It took the Nigerian state to turn the protest at Lekki into the bloodbath. We don't even know how many people died because the state, can you imagine that? The state is suppressing the facts. Number one, who ordered the removal of the camera? We've heard that it's not a camera, it's something else, no problem. But who ordered it? That's the first question. Number two, who ordered the lights switched off? Number three, who brought the soldiers? For what? Not a single, all they had were flags. 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 That was all they had. Flags.
Welcome back. This is a special segment of Have Your Say. We're honored that we have joining us Mr. Dele Farotimi. Mr. Farotimi, when we booked him, was an author and a lawyer. He's the author of the book that most of you know, Do Not Die in Their War. But by the time he came on our show, he's now the spokesperson for P2B campaign. So it's an honor to welcome Mr. Farotimi to the show. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Rudolph.
Amazing. You know, the conversation we were going to have 2 weeks ago is different from what we're going to have now. But it's all good, you know. I know you remain the same.
I'm not sure why it's any different.
No, you don't know why.
No,
you don't know why there's a difference.
No,
okay, let me show you.
For me.
Let me show you this. Let's watch this. Yeah. Let's start with this. This is you.
Sure.
But frankly speaking, no personnel change is going to save Nigeria. Yes. It's got to be a root and branch reorganization and restructuring of his entire governance system, the way it approaches things, and it must then be anchored on law.
But isn't it contradictory?
So this was you a few weeks ago, a few months ago. And then now, what happened?
Yes. You see, this is the amazing thing about all of us. We select what we want to hear and we ignore the total picture that is painted for us. The same me who said that gave a 3-part lecture, and it was titled Your PVC or Your Gun. I made clear the choices that are before the Nigerian people, the stark choices. We are in a supposed democracy. I have never canvassed the use of arms in my life, but I am seeing a country that is in turmoil and ready to die. And I laid out clearly the options that were before us, and at least in my own view. I made clear that we were either going to use the electoral route or we were going to have to bear arms. And I have always maintained that I have no interest in violence. The same me, I came into the public space over 2 years ago, and I made clear that in my view, it was the turn of Ndi Igbo to rule Nigeria. I was not shirking. I did not mince words. I did not at any point equivocate in making clear that that was my position as far as the Nigerian enterprise is concerned. No bones hidden, out in the open. I was clear. That is the second thing. Third thing, the same me, I wrote a book. I titled it, The Imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution. And in that book, I set out clearly that the only peaceful path to a Nigerian revolution lies through the electoral process, and that the Nigerian people would have to find common cause and then unite behind that common cause to demand the changes that are required by all, regardless of their tribe, ethnicity, or religion, so that Nigeria might be able to find its destiny. I was not missing words at any point. I have never supported protests because I have made clear that the Nigerian state is deaf. It does not hear. And that when you go out on protest, you are actually being reactionary. And that the only thing you can do is to change the game on the Nigerian system. And then a man like Peter Obi comes out, a member of the same class that has held Nigeria bound for all these years. In one way or the other, he became a member of that class, whether he was a saint in hell or whatever he was. He became the governor of the state. He battled the House of Assembly to a standstill. He brought value to governance, and that was the publicly accepted position until all these shenanigans because of elections began and all the propaganda began, and you start attributing all sorts of things to him. So if I'm going to have to come through the electoral system to gain the changes that I desire, and I find a candidate in the race whose position regarding restructuring mirrors mine, because I had interactions with him personally on behalf of Afenifere and on behalf of the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, I sat down and I was convinced as to the honesty of his desire to change the Nigerian state, restructure it, and I bought into that. And on the basis of that, and the fact that he is not only eminently qualified, but he meets the demand of justice and equity in the moment, being of Southeastern origin, and given the fact that Nigeria is not found on citizenship, regardless of the madness and stupidity of those who consider themselves revolutionaries, who believe that Nigeria is founded on citizenship. Nigeria is not founded on citizenship. It is founded on ethnicity. If the one thing that will galvanize popular action in Nigeria are the pains and grievances of an ethnic group who have been systematically marginalized and in whose marginalization legitimacy has been found for the marginalization of every other Nigerian, regardless of their ethnicity. If I find one such Nigerian who has equally made a difference in governance in Nigeria, shame on the idiots who cannot see it and who seek to attack me and think that I have in some ways contradicted my position, because I have not. I am on record. If I was talking in beer parlors, they can challenge my position. I did not speak in beer parlors. I wrote books, and my books stand there in testament of my position. I have never advocated armed resistance. I have never advocated protest on the street. I have always maintained that the only way to change Nigeria is through the electoral route. I'm a Democrat above all things. Those who do not have any democratic credentials but wish to dictate my conscience to me should learn to be careful about seeking to do so. I might be mistaken, but I am a man led by my convictions, not by greed, not by money. I gave up more than anyone can give me, regardless of what happens in the election. Let's be clear about that. So that's my position. I have not contradicted myself in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Obviously, I didn't know there were some pushback, and I would have asked you to tell me.
Of course, I have endured all kinds of idiots attacking me because they believe they have a monopoly for the definition of what constitutes a revolution and what does not. And I've had enough of it. It's getting under my skin. So it's time we actually dealt with this once and for all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, how has the campaign been going, since you joined? Why do you assess the campaign?
Put it this way. I'm not a politician. I'm not about, unless I am specifically required to do certain things on behalf of the campaign, I have pretty much stuck with my own everyday routine. I'm not a politician. I have said years ago that the only weapon by which you might be able to slay the Nigerian monster is by the employment of the truth as a weapon. The truth is both a shield and a sword. And it is all I have ever deployed in my war against the Nigerian state, because this is an unjust state. But I do not war against the Nigerian people. I war against the state that has made sure that all of us are not citizens. So nothing has really changed about my daily routine I'm a retired lawyer, full-time troublemaker. I take my time. I engage wherever the field of engagement presents itself. I have not changed in any way. My routine remains exactly the same on a day-to-day basis. I just do my own thing and I let other people do their thing. You engage with me, I engage with you. But when the candidates do this for us, I do it.
Do you travel with the candidates? What's the role like?
I have not had the privilege. All that I am doing right now, like I said, my routine remains essentially the same. When the head of the media group tells me, oh, Dele, we need you to take this engagement on behalf of the campaign, I take it. But both the interviewer and those who have sent me, they are aware of the fact that I will only ever speak to what I know. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know. If I know, I'll tell you what I know. So I come with a caveat. I'll speak
Now
to my conviction.
let's talk about what we know. There is this report by Fitch that says that Tinubu is likely going to win the election.
Leave that story. That is just a propaganda trash. Since when did Fitch begin to conduct public opinion polls? The one thing the Tinubu machinery is particularly good at is propaganda. They create narratives, they spin stories. The one thing that had started happening, especially up until last week, the general trend is that there was a depression setting in amongst the Bat idiots. They were generally becoming apprehensive about the certainty of their loss. And this is my honest opinion, really, because I don't see how the man expects to win. I don't know where. Outside of the Southwest, I really don't see anywhere he can honestly expect to win. But that depression that set in, they had to lift it. So, of course, they created some concussion. Which one is Fitch? You are in the US, I believe. How many Fitch reports have you read on Fitch opinion polls have you read in your stay in the US? I'm sure you haven't heard of any. So all of a sudden, Fitch is now conducting opinion poll on, like, please leave that story. It's just one of their diversions. We should be, if we are contemplating the Tinubu candidacy, we should be looking to the Nigerian people themselves. What kind of people would elect such a man? That's the first thing we should be focused on. What kind of people would elect a person known as Bola Tinubu? That is fundamental. Me, I'm a Yoruba man. When you introduce yourself to a new family, the first question you get asked is, Bolotiwa, Talibabe, translated, where do you come from? Who is your father? Where are you from? These are questions demanding your provenance. What kind of people elect a man whose provenance they cannot speak to? I'm interested in that. I'm not interested in whether he wins or not. It's the people who would elect him that interest me, which is why I've talked about my readiness to depart Nigeria if they found the grace to elect a man like him. It's a simple thing. It's not about the man. It's about the people who would elect such a man. I just want to be clear so that I'm not wasting my life. When they have found the grace to elect such a man, I will know that my time in Nigeria, at least for a season, is done. It's not about whether Peter Obi wins or not. It is the people who would elect such a man. Obviously and patently, reflexively criminal in all of his instincts. And then a people would close their eyes and elect such a man. Okay.
Mr. Farotimi, let me tell you what the people are saying. His people are saying that we should forget about his biography, forget about how he made his money, that he built Lagos, that he has what it takes to move the country to that place that we want the country to be. How do you respond to that? That it should be about issues. It should be about issues, not about the personality.
No, it's fine. My people have a proverb. Yeah, I'm a Yoruba man. I grew up with old people. One of their fundamental proverbs, they say, which means that the person who would clothe you, who is promising you regal clothing, you should look to what he is wearing. Bola Tinubu has been in undisputed control of Lagos State for the last 23 years. 23 years. That's a lifetime. There is an Islamic tradition that says that when a child is born, it is old enough to die. So a man has been in control of a state, unchallenged, for 23 years. It is the fourth largest economy in Africa. It is larger than a lot of countries for 23 years. So let us use Lagos. And at least I'm happy that he himself has happily claimed Lagos as the nadir and plateau of his administrative capacities. Let's look at healthcare. The man is himself a decrepit basket case in terms of health. Every time he's off to London or Paris, he's off to everywhere to treat himself but the General Hospital Ikeja or Lasut. Everywhere else but any of the health facilities that he has superintended directly or indirectly for the last 23 years. I am resident in Lagos and I have been long before he found his current Lagos. And I can tell you for a fact that there was once upon a time in this Lagos where you could find water when you turn on the public mains, long before he came. Today, that is not the case in vast parts of the Lagos metropolis. And yet, there are enough debts for 2 generations to inherit, in spite of the fact that the facilities have not been built. I have lived in the greater Lekki Peninsula, particularly the Ajero-Agungi axis, for the last, I've been living here since 2002, so this is my 20th year. Lagos State has not built 1 square inch pipe water in the entire Lekki Peninsula, with the possible exception in some parts of Lekki Phase 1. That is a metropolis housing millions, and yet this is a state below sea level. People are sinking boreholes in their individual homes. The only intervention the state has sought is to tax the boreholes. There is only one road in and out of my metropolis, Lekki. It was built by Jack Onde. Tinubu came, stole my road, turned it into a concession, bought back the concession twice. The Lagos State government has bought it back twice. It became the scene of a mass murder, certified as a massacre by a tribunal set up by the state itself, populated by people nominated by the state itself. And then the man tells me that he is the apogee of governance capacity in Nigeria, and that I should applaud and hail Hosanna, and he will come and solve the problems created by the mess and disaster that he helped to install in 2015. I am a creature of reason, and my brain tells me that it is exceedingly delusional for anyone to suggest that a man who has failed so woefully in so dictatorial control of a state for 23 years, the richest of the states in this country, the 4th largest economy in Nigeria, that has become a glorified slum, a painted sepulcher, no drainage system to speak of, avarice and greed governing everything, shamelessly taking his hand directly into the coffers of the state in the name of a commission for a criminal organization called Alpha Beta. And that is the person that should be the president of my country. Yes, I remember you saying we shouldn't speak to persons. But you see, the problem is persons matter. Personality matters. Character matters. Who's the man? Who's the man who wants to be my president? Who is he? Who's his father's father's father? What schools did he attend? These are critical things. That's why it becomes important when you now tell me, how do I even begin to speak to a situation where we are patently and clearly in a situation that is akin to state capture, like a mafia organization has captured a state and is now seeking to extend that franchise nationwide? How? So we'll take Nigeria the way of Lagos, privatize the Commonwealth, so that Agberos will become. You have to look at the dawn. It tells you what the day will look like. This is Lagos, the town of Agberos. The only thing that is different is that the terrorists in Lagos are well fed and well organized, and they have the cover of state impunity. That's why they are different from Boko Haram now. That's why they are different. Yeah, we are in the grip of a criminal organization that is looking to go national. End of story. So I don't know how to assess it beyond that, frankly.
Now, the other candidate, major candidate, is Atiku Abubakar. He is currently in the United States. He came here as a way to prove those who are insinuating that there's a reason why he couldn't, or he had some questions to answer in America. How do you assess your opponent, Tinubu, Atiku, this time?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's not my opponent.
I'm just
teasing you. Don't worry. But the point is this: I'm not one of those who have allowed myself. I can poke the occasional fun at him and talk about Adimeru Babasuwe, because that's what we call somebody who is supposedly smuggled along with other goods and services. I don't know. Obasanjo is the one who started the story about Jefferson and his indictment and all of that. And I know that his co-accused did end up in jail. But I'm not even going to allow myself to be distracted by any of the many integrity challenges dogging the steps of Mr. Atiku Adimeru Abubakar. My own issue is very simple. Like I have told you before, Nigeria is not a country with citizens. We're governed by ethnicity. You're reflexively tribalistic in your thoughts, whether you like it or not, because the country itself deals with you not as a citizen, but as a member of an ethnic nationality. That's why you speak to educationally disadvantaged state, quota system. So it's not dealing with you as a human being. It's dealing with you as a member of a state, of a nation rather, within the larger state. So for me, when I have just had 8 years, as of today, 7+ years, of a Fulani redentist president who has ridden roughshod over everybody's sensibilities, made clear that he has no qualms about being so blatantly nepotistic, Fulanized and northernized the entire security architecture, compromised Nigeria's security for Fulani interest, blatantly so, undeniably so. And then another Fulani is coming on the heel of that one. As far as I'm concerned, Atiku's candidacy is in itself an affront to equity and justice. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not about whether he's a wanted felon in America who has been smuggled in on somebody's tailcoat. I don't know, and I don't care. I don't require the Americans to tell me that he's not a fit and proper person to be the president of Nigeria. Obasanjo was his boss, and Obasanjo was eloquent in laying down the case that indicted Mr. Atiku Adimeru Abubakar. So this one is not about, it's just a simple, straightforward fact that he's not for me. Morally, on the stand of equity, he does not qualify. And aside from the fact that he has run for every president, in every presidential race since 1993, what qualifies him for the office? What? What has he done in public life other than the fact that he has used his position in public life to amass wealth that cannot be explained by anything but impunity and corruption? So what recommends him? Why should, so as far as I'm concerned, beyond the fact of his disqualification by reason of the zoning agreement that they all freely entered into in their coven when we were starting out in 1999. Aside from that, it is actually quite something that we have a choice between two. These are Siamese twins, Atiku, Tinubu, Siamese twins. It's a no-brainer. Anyone who will vote Atiku will vote Tinubu. I wouldn't vote either of them. So it's not even about me supporting Peter Obi. It's the fact that I find both sufficiently repugnant to good conscience that I can't even think about voting for them. And when anybody tells me that let's not look at character, let's look at competence, I'm like, are you for real? If these persons have been brought to your home by your daughter, if your daughter brought home Tinubu that they want to marry your daughter, the daughter says, your daughter says she wants to marry somebody like Tinubu with all his character baggage, moral baggage, would you sanction such a marriage? If you wouldn't sanction such a marriage, why would you want such a person winning your country more than is already destroyed? So please, Atiku, Abubakar, Tinubu, for me, they're one and the same. They're not. Those are not choices by any stretch of the imagination, for as long as one is possessed of some gray matters. As far as I'm concerned, there is no reasonable basis for supporting either of them.
All right, we're going to get to your candidate, but before that, let me ask about Omoyole Sowore.
Yeah.
In the past, you've said, I wanted to play that audio, but I couldn't, that video, I couldn't get it easily.
No, please, go on.
You said that even 100 Sowore will not make any dent.
Oh, that was actually me. 100. I think it was 100 Dele Farotimi or 1,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, but what do you think about Sowore and his efforts, his run for president?
Well, let me say this.
Because before you answer, because I played that video of you talking about him when I interviewed him, and he was saying that you've changed your position. That was before you now moved to support.
No, I would love to hear what he had to say about me changing my position.
Okay. Maybe by the end,
I would love to hear that.
Yeah, by the end of the show, maybe we can get it and play.
No, because why I'm saying I would love to hear that is because I probably wouldn't want to speak to certain things unless I hear him saying that I changed my position.
I think the question was that I was trying to find out from him that you were saying that 100 of you will not make any dent, that nobody,
yes, I said
the country needed.
Yeah, I said so.
Yeah, was more than just
structuring.
Yeah, exactly.
I said so. Yeah, I said
exactly.
So
he
said so.
So he was trying to say that you have changed your position, that that
on the restructuring.
Yeah,
so he wouldn't say that. Yele wouldn't say that I changed my position on restructuring. Why I say that Yele wouldn't say that is because even Mr. Peter Obi is aware that without the commitment to restructuring, which he gave in the meeting that he held with the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum in the house of Chief Ayo Adebanjo in Lekki in Lagos, where I was in attendance, and he was rigorously and vigorously interrogated about his desires to see a Nigeria unbundled and allowed to work as federating units, where he committed to state police, where he committed to ensuring that electricity is unbundled, railways are unbundled, the judiciary is unbundled. He made these commitments in public. He has himself said so, even in certain interviews. So it was based on these commitments. And my earlier explanation to you, we have only two choices. We're either going to do this through the ballot, or we are going to do this carrying arms. It presents an opportunity to do it through the electoral process, to which I have already aligned myself. So how have I changed my position? I wasn't going to decree the changes from Mount Olympus. It would have to be through either of those two channels. What I even find most appalling about all of this is, I think sometime earlier this year, when I was giving the lecture on the series, Your PVC or Your Gun, it was a 3-part series, if my memory serves me right. The publicity secretary of a political party challenged me openly for asking people to go and register to vote. And the same persons presume to challenge me for entering the electoral process in support of a client and of a candidate. Remember, I'm a lawyer. We always talk client.
Yeah.
So, in all honesty, I find it very ludicrous when these charges of changes. The one thing I am, if nothing else, is consistent. The truth teller has no need for a good memory, because what you said yesterday is what you say today, because you are telling the truth. You don't need to remember what you said. My position has been that we have two choices. It's either the PVC or the gun. I signed on to the PVC route, and I didn't hide my position. I've been out in public saying so. So what has changed? The person I'm supporting is supposed to decree it when I can't decree it. Come on. People are just being intellectually indolent and fraudulent when they say these things. Position is out there in the open. My position remains consistent. Nigeria has to be restructured for anything to change. I am supporting a candidate who has promised it. If you have the powers of the Nigerian presidency behind the quest for restructuring, and the people are sufficiently mobilized behind the demand, and the thing has been sufficiently explained to them, it becomes possible. But to suggest that because the person I'm supporting is not a military officer who can decree restructuring into existence, I have somehow changed my position, that's disingenuous.
All right, let's look at the candidate, Peter Obi, and his position.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help, because a lot of people have issues and questions. One of them is, we know that before he became the candidate for Labour Party, he said Nigeria was like a car with a knocked engine. It's out there. He acknowledged that he actually said it. That
He said it. I heard it myself.
Okay, that what was needed was not a driver. That it was. I tried to get him to answer that question in terms of what changed. How did it become now that forget about it? The driver, we don't need a driver. We need a driver, not a new engine. Because people who believe, there are people in Nigeria today who believe that all these things are not important, that we have to change the structure, we have to change the constitution, we have to find a way to do that, not getting a new driver. Did you get a sufficient answer from him why he transformed from
Rudolph?
Yeah.
Rudolph.
Yeah.
You know, I am not going to be Peter Obi's whisperer because I don't live in his head. But I can understand how these assumptions can lead to misunderstandings, and errors might also be made. So let me attempt to explain, because it all equally applies to me to some extent. I heard Peter Obi saying clearly, I think it was on a Rise Morning show, that Nigeria was like a car with a knocked engine. I heard that. But we all have to understand something. At any point in time, a country is ruled by a legal order. That legal order might be legitimate or it might be illegitimate. There is a constitution known as the 1999 Constitution. I believe it to be completely fraudulent. Completely fraudulent. And let me say this ahead of time, even though I've not been asked the question. I will never serve in an office that will require me to swear to an oath to uphold that constitution, regardless of who wins the election. Let's be clear about that. So you can very well rule me out of any public office, even if Obi wins. So I'm not in this for public office. Let's be clear about that. So now, when you have a fraudulent legal order, which has legality, but is lacking in legitimacy, the only way you can change it legally is to use the instrumentality of the systems constructed by that illegitimate legal order to undermine it. And that's where we are at in Nigeria today. Regardless of how many kowtowing visits that Peter Obi might make to Minna or to Abeokuta or to anywhere, this is beyond him. This is us, the Nigerian people, the ones who have been deprived of citizenship, looking for somebody behind whom we can rally to get a foot in the door. I don't believe that Peter Obi will solve the problems of Nigeria, but it will be a start. For a Peter Obi to win, it becomes easy for a Yele Sowore to win in 2027. It becomes easy for a Dele Farotimi to raise his hand in 2027 because the Nigerian people would have found their voices and their powers in the legitimate process that is completely legal. So when Peter Obi says Nigeria is like a vehicle with a knocked engine, he was completely correct. But there is absolutely nothing contradictory in him seeking to employ the instrumentality of the system, because you have to play the hands you are dealt. You can sit down and argue against your reality from now till kingdom comes, or you can engage with your reality in a quest to affect it so that it becomes what you'd prefer. So it's always a choice in your own hands, but you cannot bemoan your reality in the expectation that anything would change until you have done something to affect it. Nothing will change. So the man deciding to run, I don't believe it is contradictory, because the same man has said clearly that by every one of the things he has said, because I think he's been a little short on details as to how he wants to go about the restructuring. But if you listen to the things he has said as he outlines his plans for Nigeria, you will see clearly that what he has set out to do are incompatible with the existing system. The existing system would have to be tweaked before any of the programs he has. You say you want to move Nigeria from consumption to production. You can't move it without changing the system, because the system is designed to consume. So that system that is designed to consume, by the time the rubber hits the road, you realize very quickly that you really can't change that system and that mindset without tweaking the system that is designed to preserve a consumptive culture rather than a productive one. So I really don't find any discrepancy or inconsistency in that position. I just believe that perhaps the opportunity hasn't presented itself for him to explain it, or perhaps it is not blessed with the gift of the gab like I am blessed. I'm able to explain my thoughts. He might not be as able to do so, but I believe the thoughts dovetails into each other, and because that's what I think really on the subject.
Now, let's take it a little bit further. Do you see anything from your encounter with him that gives you the confidence that he won't be just like any other politician? Because we have people like Babatunde Fashola, for instance, before he got it. No, these are people.
No, you're talking about Mr. Sergeant Aitofel.
Yeah, you know these people, and before they got in there, they were saying things they were going to do. You know, power supply is not nuclear science. You have people like El Rufai, before he got in there to be governor of Kaduna State, saying that, oh, security thing is easy to handle. You know, is there anything you saw from Peter Obi or heard from him that gives you the confidence that if he gets there, he won't turn around and say, oh, I did not expect this. I didn't know this is how it is.
You see, we have to, first of all, understand something. Human beings are completely untrustworthy, including me, all of us. So at any point in time when you have to make a call, a judgment call on human character, all you really have are their records, if you have any. And in my earlier foray into the university, when I read English language and linguistics, I was taught that in dealing with characters, you look at what people say about the character, what the character says about himself, and then what the person does or ignores to do. So all I have on Peter Obi are his records in Anambra. Nobody has come forward to say that Peter Obi is a saint, and I'm not suggesting that he is. I can't speak to his sainthood. I'm not looking to vote for a pope. But when it comes to the subject of competence in governance, prudence in governance, responsibility to the electorate, frugality, for somebody to save state funds, especially in a space like Nigeria, it says something about the person's mindset. The only way I know to worship God is as a Christian. And there is a verse, a couple of verses in the Bible that tugs at my consciousness constantly. And it comes from Habakkuk, chapter 2, verses 2 to 3. It speaks to vision. And I know that one of the characters of vision is that it constrains. It constrains you. You do not, if you have a vision to build a house, you are unlikely to be spending 1 million naira in a nightclub on a weekend until you have built your house. You'll be salting your money away because you're consumed by the vision to build the house. The man was consumed by the vision to build a state. He saved money. Everybody agreed that at least until this presidential run that has brought all sort of negative publicity, the generally accepted narrative in the public space in Nigeria is that Peter Obi is one of the outliers when it comes to governance capacities. So I'm now left with a choice. Frankly, I didn't make choices have been made for me by good conscience. I had said over 2 years ago that I would not support a candidate who is not of Igbo origin. I'm in the public space saying so. And then a candidate as competent as Peter Obi comes into the race. And all of a sudden, the Nigerian youth appears to be interested in the race. I have a duty to my conscience to do the best I can to help substantiate that candidacy to the point where it becomes a threat to the kingdom of darkness that has overtaken Nigeria in the form of Bola, Tinubu, and Atiku, Adimeru, Abubakar. I have a duty, as far as I'm concerned. Let me go to my grave knowing that I did my bit. Let my children know that I didn't stand by. I'm not done quixote. This is Nigeria. Nigeria is not ruled by citizenship. It's ruled by ethnicity. The primary driving force behind the Peter Obi candidacy are the disaffected, the disenchanted, those who have been desensitized, who have been denied. The bulk of those might happen to be Ndi Igbo, but it does not change the fact that that is the lot of the average Nigerian. So I identified the fact very clearly that this man is a man in a moment in history. Nigeria is at an inflection point in his history. And we would all have to say where we were at that point when the time comes to render account for our lives. And I have taken a decision on the basis of that. It is conviction. I might be wrong. It's very possible that I am completely wrong. But it is my life. It's my decision. I'm the only one who will render my account. So if I manage to persuade one or two persons to vote for the person that I believe can solve the problem, I am happy. I've done my bit. But I am not in this to tell lies on behalf of Peter Obi that he will build a station on Mars, or that when he was governor of Anambra State, he built an helipad in every local government. I will speak only to what I know. I am convinced that of the three principal candidates in the race, he is the one that presents a path into a future that makes sense and not into a race to Kabul or Venezuela. That's my own position.
Okay, I just want to make sure that people know that in another 10 minutes, we allow our audience to join us and they can also talk to you, ask you questions. But before we get to that, I want you to address some controversies around P2B. He has tried to address them on several interviews, and we still hope that he will come on this show because he said he will call us and he will come on the show. So if you have a way of passing across that message.
I will tell the head of the media team, Mr. Ifade.
Okay.
My own is, if I'm here and you're taking me not just as Dele Farotimi, and you're also speaking to me as his campaign spokesperson,
yes,
I'll speak to what I know. If he had made a proud commitment to be on your show, I'll pass on the message to the head of the team, and I believe that he'll get the message.
All right, thank you. Let me see if you can maybe help us understand his explanation of this controversy. So maybe what may not be controversy, but because he didn't explain them well yet, and people continue to bring it up. So the first one is the Pandora. No, it's out there, and I've seen him answer the questions, and people still they continue to. Maybe you can do a justice to that.
Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
We have this song that we sing on that say Olomoloma Roja. Now the person will get picking, go carry him picking. You're speaking specifically to the finances of Mr. Peter Obi and the way he has elected to structure his finances. It would be presumptuous of me to presume, when you become presumptuous, to presume to speak to his finances, which I'm not in any way, shape, or form privy to. However, I need to draw your attention to something. If the man had done anything that other members of the Nigerian class, to which is an eminently qualified member, whether it is by reason of his economic capacity or by reason of his political affiliations, is eminently qualified. If he had done anything against the laws of Nigeria, I am sure that the gentlemen at EFCC and ICPC and what have you, we have multiplicities of political and prosecutorial agencies that would have ensured that he would not have dared to be making a presidential run, because I'm sure you will not suggest that he's a candidate of the system. When you had Mr. Rochas Okorocha, who was a candidate within the capacity of the system to muzzle, and they had sufficient basis to muzzle him, they didn't pull back to muzzle him. So I assure you that if Mr. Peter Obi had broken any laws, we're not, because you can begin to deal with issues of morality if you believe there is a moral question there. But when it comes to the issue of legality, I doubt that anyone can speak to the legality of what he has done, because if he had broken any laws, I assure you that the bail conditions that would have been slammed against him by the time the charges are brought would have been worse than the ones that you have ever seen brought against any terrorist. That he hasn't been charged or had any issues raised related to that should speak volume to you about the legality of the thing. I don't have that kind of money, so I don't need any Pandora. I don't need to go and hide money anywhere. I don't have an account outside of Nigeria. So if it's me, you can ask me. My Toroko boy is here in Nigeria. So.
But as I don't know what your role entails, as spokesperson.
No, my role is as the spokesperson, but as I have told you already, it is not my job to speak to things that should be in the exclusive preserve and knowledge of the principal. I can only speak to what I know. And it's not an affliction that arose today. It's been like that all my life. When I don't know, I'll tell you, I don't know. If I don't know and I've told you I don't know, you can't hold me that I have told you a lie now. But if I came to you and in my overzealousness to defend, quote and unquote, I now begin to concoct tales, what does that say about me? It destroys me as a person. Any lie, just one, destroys me.
Now, what do you think about his performance in front of the Arewa Consultative Forum? The questions he was asked and the answers he gave.
Well, I saw bits and pieces of that, and I then did read the reviews. Frankly, my take on it is twofold. First, I think his employers are meant to be the Nigerian people, even though the Arewa Consultative Forum is like a microcosm of the people that he's reaching out to. So I'm more concerned about how he might be able to communicate his intentions to the generality of the Nigerian people. However, I think before the Arewa House, he managed to put his case across, particularly as it relates to the capacities of the northern part of Nigeria to become an agricultural basket for the entirety of Nigeria and beyond. Because he spoke eloquently to the fact that Niger State alone has more land mass than a few European countries, sometimes even combined, including Holland for that matter. And Holland earns so much revenue from agricultural produce, whilst the northern part of Nigeria is incapable of even feeding itself, talk less of feeding the rest of Nigeria. The strength of the northern part is in its land mass, its arable land mass. But that has not been leveraged largely because of insecurity, bad planning at multiple levels, lack of access to the market, just general. I think there is something about us that appears to just want to impoverish the people, and nobody appears to be focused on creating value and wealth for them. So he spoke to that extensively, and I believe it was a well-received speech. Of course, there was the lie by the midget of Kaduna, characteristically so, but that was easily debunked by videos that popped up of he himself giving testimony of how it was orders from Kaduna and from Abuja that had him caged up. So other than that, I think he did pretty okay. It was a pretty good outing as far as I can tell.
So you revealed today, because we didn't know that he appeared before the Afenifere sort of,
yes, he did.
But he wasn't made public. He wasn't made public. Okay.
He also wasn't hidden. He was a news item.
Okay.
It was a news item. I believe even Arise covered it. It wasn't just Afenifere. It was a meeting that had every member of the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum. So PANDEF was represented, the Middle Belt Forum was represented, Ohaneze Ndigbo was represented, and Afenifere hosted the meeting. So 4 zones out of 6, which comprises of the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum, met and hosted Peter Obi to an interactive forum with the executive and national caucus members of these different organizations. And it was held in Lekki in the residence of Chivayo Adebanjo, and it wasn't hidden. It was reported. So he spoke with us and we were convinced. And restructuring was high on our agenda as organizations, both in our regional conclaves and as a multi-regional entity. It was important to us. Restructuring was front and center in the interaction and the questions that were asked of him. It wasn't something done hidden. It was out in the open. It was reported.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Let me. We are about 5 minutes before we let people in. You mentioned that you retired from practicing law.
Yeah.
At what age? What happened?
It was when I turned 50. Nothing happened. I could tell you fanciful stories about how I got fed up with the unjust legal system. And yes, I did get fed up, but that had nothing to do with it. Even when I was in the university, I had told my friends who knew me back from my university days that once I turned 50, I was going to stop practicing law. And they would usually ask me, so what would you be doing? I would say, I didn't know, but I just knew that there must be more to my life than wearing starched collars and standing before a crook and saying, my lord, or my lady. So then when they press further, I say, okay, maybe I'll write, because I always knew I could write. So I was saying, maybe I'll write. I was saying, maybe I could act. And I did try to act. I was in a TV series. Yes.
Why didn't we get that clip?
I don't let people know.
We'll find it. Don't worry.
I tried it on once I turned 50. I tried it on. I was in a TV series, and I realized that it wasn't for me, because when they say call time is 8 o'clock, you're on set by 8 o'clock, and they wouldn't start shooting until 2 p.m.
All right.
Sorry, I know you lost me for a second.
Yeah,
I was having a call came in, but I cut it off.
Okay.
So they wouldn't start until like 2 p.m. So waiting is not one of my strong suits. I hate waiting for anyone or anything. So I realized very quickly that I wasn't cut out for any acting, so it wasn't for me. So I left it quickly. They wrote me out of the script after like a couple of episodes. So I went back to writing, and I've enjoyed that. And I'm a full-time troublemaker, so I enjoy what I'm
doing. You just said today that you won't be taking any position.
No, I have no interest. Not whilst the 1999 Constitution subsists, except I am given an office designed to destroy the 1999 Constitution, and which does not require me to swear to an oath to protect it. If it is for that specific narrow purpose, I'll be exceedingly happy and excited to take it on. But I am not interested in I'm not interested. I have no interest. If you see me take anything on, mark this, and I love this, call me a bastard. If you see me take on any ministerial nonsense, I'm not interested. As long as I have to swear on the 1999 Constitution, I, Dele Farotimi, will never accept it. Take it to the bank. I gave up more to become me than anyone can give me to take that on.
Let me play a clip of one of your colleagues and get your take on that and how the team works.
Please.
In his campaign, go and ask him again, and he will tell you that if there is anybody that his team has been extinguished completely, is that of Atiku Abubakar, who, of course, should have been disqualified by now by going to the north and making a genocidal statement that Northerners should vote for North only. This was what caused genocide in Rwanda, when Hutus were told that they should not support Tutsis because they are cockroaches. Atiku Abubakar went to the north and said Northerners should support only the people from the north, not Yoruba, not Igbo. That is ethnic profiling. That's genocidal statement. Atiku knows he has failed. What he's trying to do now is to make sure he destroys our democracy after he has failed. And he should be called to order. INEC should be implementing Section 97 of the Electoral Act now on Atiku, because that's a criminal offense, trying to profile ethnic and religious groups. So it is Atiku Abubakar that I've always said he is very unfit to be president, and not only that he's unfit, he is now a threat to our democracy.
No, I want to understand something. Your team, do you meet and decide this is how we're going to react to this particular issue, or do people go out there, and is that the position of the P2B campaign?
No, I think a more proper question would be, is the statement correct?
Okay.
I think that might be a fairer way to frame the question.
Okay.
Because if you ask it the way you framed it, it would suggest that we must be in a position to anticipate every question that will be asked of us when we go into studios and we are to be asked questions. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first, if you want me to deal with the correctness of his assertions,
yes, that's why I raised it. Otherwise,
okay.
I will
tell you that those assertions are completely correct. He has used very strong words. Those are pretty strong words. I might not have used the same words, or I might have used words, depending on my mood at the point. The only thing that might be correct, in fact, that will be correct, that you can take to the bank, will be the veracity and truth of my statement. I will not be accountable for my language, because the issue is actually quite vexatious. When you have a man who has been the vice president of Nigeria, however unjust Nigeria might be, you imagine that such a man should have certain level of temperance, especially when it comes to his public statements. But Mr. Adimeru Atiku Abubakar went to Arewa House, and it was quite blatant in canvassing that the North should not vote for anyone who is not a Northerner. He was very, 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 very clear in denigrating the pains of those who have demanded that Nigeria should be restructured when he was talking about the separatists in the southern part of Nigeria. And he then compounded it by his assertion that the North should only vote for persons of northern origin. Now, you can only speak to genocide when the action has taken place. So I probably would not have picked the word genocide, but as in it has not happened. But the foundation and grounds for such heinous crimes are already being laid by the kind of languages that are being used in distinguishing between Nigerians by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. So yes, the basis of the allegations are completely valid and truthful, and I stand by them on behalf of the campaign. I'm not going to disown them. He said those words. They are out in the open. They are not words that were spoken in a coven and whispered in the open. They were spoken. It's on video. And once you begin to divide people along ethnic lines, you are actually precipitating or likely to precipitate a crisis which might end in a genocide. That is not outside the realm of possibilities given our recent history as a people. So people might disagree with this, the severity of his tone or the harshness of the language, but the circumstances demand such forceful languages to be used so that persons begin to understand the gravity of the words that proceed from their mouths, especially when they've been entrusted with high offices, such as the vice presidency. As unjust and whatever Nigeria might be deemed to be, he was a breath removed from being the president of Nigeria and is aspiring to be the president of Nigeria. How is that any different from the people, from the dot in the circle? How? It's the same thing. How is that different from deleting the tweets on the Deborah murder? How is it any different? So it speaks to a pattern. So when you hear Kenneth speaking as forcefully as he did, of course, he was recalling all these past incidences of the same man pandering to sectional, ethnic opinions and sentiments. So it's not out of place and it is not beyond the pale. Those are valid allegations to make and they are valid charges to lay on the table. They are borne out by the facts.
All right. We let our audience join us now because I know you don't have a lot of time with us. I wish we have more time.
We even have a slight problem that I can remedy if you let me get up for a minute. The battery is pretty low on this device. I need to just pick up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll give you time. Yeah, obviously. All right. So let me while we wait for him to come back in, let me what do? Bring in the audience members and prep them, make sure
on this device.